Morning, guys and ladies, gals, everybody. Well, this is my first reading of it this morning. Usually it's the first thing I look at every day, so bear with me. The HIS Capital Group, empowering ordinary investors to achieve extraordinary returns. Our vision is to leave a legacy by implementing sound stewardship principles that will influence and feed nations. The great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team with a shared focus and vision. And our culture is based on our core values of servitude, insight, integrity, and passion. And the understanding that a legacy isn't only about leaving what you've earned, but also what you've learned. And we strive to maintain a collaborative work environment that's designed to bring out the best in each other and those that we encounter. These are the qualities that drive everything that we do. I will invest in developing myself and others and recognize that my behavior must set an example of integrity and one that elicits trust and esteem from those that I serve. I will remain accountable to my peers for my actions and for upholding these standards. This oath I take freely and upon my honor. Everything we do for His glory. I will take responsibility and ownership of my tasks and duties. I will strive daily to achieve a life of purpose and productiveness. I will take the initiative to be the solution and make a difference. I will exercise sound stewardship of time, capital, and resources. I will embrace and drive change within our communities and beyond. I will think positively and act powerfully. I will serve as a beacon of knowledge to our clients, partners, colleagues, and my community. I will promote an attitude of gratitude. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Amen.
Thank you, brother. Awesome, awesome. So as you guys know, we finished the Real Estate 101 series, and now we are starting our next series, which basically we're breaking down into the 6 behaviors of a powerful team. Now, in the past, we've talked about some of these key components, but I want to dive into them a little bit more. I think one of the biggest things, especially now, the COVID-19, what it's really done for us as well is it's basically cleaned out the office to rid ourselves of any person that didn't necessarily fit. It's not that they weren't good people. Some people just didn't fit, right? And some people just didn't perform, or they were maybe sometimes a liability to some of our other team members. And so the big vision now is, as we get back to the focus, as we get back to growth, one of the most important things that we need to think about is, do we just want to be an ordinary team, or do we want to be a powerful team that makes a difference? And I think everybody here doesn't literally wake up in the morning and say, I want to be in the mediocre team. Would you agree? Nobody here wants to be in a team where they don't produce, where they're basically the bottom of the rung, right? They're the weakest one in the teams. I think everybody deep down inside wants to belong to something that not only matters, but something that wins. They want to be a part of something that is making a difference, that has substance. Would you agree? Let's see all the virtual heads here going like this, right? So the most important thing, guys, if you really want us to go to the next level, is you got to start looking at it from what are the behaviors? What are the things that some of the elite team members do that make them different from all the other teams that never even make it to the top of the food chain, if you will? For those that know me, you guys know that I like mixed martial arts. I have a lot of respect for the mixed martial arts. I'm not necessarily a crazy fan, but I definitely am frequently watching what's going on, and I want to see. And one of my favorite things about watching those guys is the amount of discipline that it takes for these guys to learn and master different crafts, so that when they get in the octagon, they are literally very well grounded. They have great ground and pound. They have a variety of different components, right? They have strategies that when they bring to the cage, that's what makes a difference between winning and being dominated, right? And I can guarantee you that every person that steps into that ring, at least from the mindset perspective, believes or wants to believe that they have the ability to win. Until what? Until they get in the ring with somebody else who prepared even more than them, who practiced the right behaviors that ultimately dominates them. And it's interesting to see in some of these fights as well, how this one team that had all these people behind them training, practicing, I mean, they didn't just show up to fight. I can guarantee you that. They have had months of preparation, months of training, developing their thought process, working on their techniques. And there's various people that were behind this individual working for months and months and months to develop this individual so that when they got to the cage, they were fully capable and ready to perform. However, when you get into the cage, there's always going to be a winner and there's always going to be a loser. The difference is who edged the other one based on all the preparation and the work that they had. Would you guys agree? So in the same way, as much as I would like to give you a little hurrah speech and tell you how if we're just positive, we're going to be successful, the reality is that business is very much like a battle. And those who want to think that they're going to be successful will get eaten alive by those who are successful by force, because they're working every day to get better. They're working as a team. They have a variety of different things that happen, from practice, from making mistakes. And what they constantly do is they're obsessed with becoming a better version of themselves so that they don't let the team down. I've actually seen quite a few different interviews after fights, and you see the loser who actually lost. And in many cases, many times they've actually said, when they said, how do you feel about this loss? Well, I mean, I think everybody knows. You feel like crap, right? You feel terrible. You lost. You're embarrassed. But you know what's interesting is most of the actual great fighters, when they lose, they're more embarrassed because they feel like they let down their team. That the people that were working for months, countless hours on the gym, running with them at 4 in the morning, he let those people down. And that's really the biggest burden that they felt, because again, he truly is a team member. And unfortunately, in his mind, he failed his team that dedicated and sacrificed so much. And so again, I want to connect that the strength of the team is tied to the strength of its people. And I want you to understand that in business, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, no pun intended with that color, right? The reality, guys, is that business is brutal. If we don't adapt, we get eaten alive and you're out of business. So when you really take a look at business, if you want to thrive and you want to have a safe environment, it requires that all the team members come together in unity and that we fight together. And when we fight together, we can conquer and achieve. And so today, what I'm going to share with you is the beginning of this series of the 6 behaviors of a powerful team that dominates and their teammates. And ultimately, what that does is it creates an opportunity for us to get a better picture for how we feel about ourselves and our team and how other members of our team feel about us. And what it's supposed to do is give us a gauge so that we have an idea of whether or not we're like thriving as a team, whether or not we're mediocre and need work, or whether or not we're in serious danger and we need to address those problems in order to grow. And so part of my goal today is, again, as I share the very first behavior today, which I think is one of the critical pieces, is I want to make sure that all of you are participating in this particular test so that we can have a real clear picture of what the perception of each individual is. And that's going to help us to improve no matter what. It doesn't matter. You can be raw and straightforward. If you don't like it, if you feel like everything's wrong, share that, because ultimately what that's going to do is help us to become better. But all I ask is that you share out of your heart what you truly feel about your team based on the questions that they have. Okay? So enough of the plug. By next week, I'll share the results on averages. I'm not going to call anybody out individually, so it's okay. You're safe, I promise. But again, part of this is we want to get better, and we don't get better unless if we work together and really share kind of our heart. So let's begin with the very first piece. So as you guys know, and I just talked about the importance of this, business is not easy. So that means we have to already take on the mindset that this is truly a battle, but it's a battle that you're not alone in. It's a battle that we can fight together to achieve and grow. But it's imperative that we understand that if we want to be successful in this, there's a level of the foundation that we have to build first in order to go to that battlefield and feel confident and feel like we're prepared to go to battle. The very first step and the very foundational piece is what we call trust. And it's a word that is used a lot, but a lot of times it's convoluted because I trust you subjectively, right? It's only right now that I trust you, but tomorrow morning I'm going to question you, right? But the reality is, if we want to get to the next level, it is imperative that as a team, we develop trust with each other. Now, one of the things that I want you to understand is you'll see probably, I don't know if you guys can read that far in there, but Javier, could you do me a favor and read that out loud for us? The definition of trust. Exactly. Now, did you guys hear it virtually? Javier, come over here now.
Nope.
I want you to, we're doing a team exercise. All right. So come closer here to the mic.
Okay. All right. Firm belief in reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. Relations have to be built on trust.
Thank you. So guys, when you think about that, what you don't realize is that all of our relationships in business, whether it's sales, in administrative work, and every aspect of business, if you really think about it, the people that you work with are the people you trust. Because imagine being in an environment where everybody is cutting your throat, everybody's trying to throw you under the bus, everybody's trying to cover themselves only. Does that sound like a healthy environment to work out of? Absolutely not, because what ends up happening, you spend most of your energy trying to survive and defending yourself instead of actually giving of yourself to make the actual growth happen. And so if we want to be successful and we want to be the powerful team that actually creates something that is lasting, we have to get to the place where we understand that as a team, we can trust each other. Now, if I were to say and do a survey, a very similar test, and say, do I trust Javier? Do I trust Christine? Do I trust Darla? Do I trust Luis? And I started going individually. Would you agree that I don't trust every single person exactly the same? Yes or no? Right. And if you think about it, now put yourself in that shoe. If I were to ask you to tell me, who do you trust by percentages? By the time we were done with that test, chances are each and every one of you would have a different level or percentage of trust. You have more confidence in one, less confidence in the other, and so on and so forth, right? And so I'm not asking everybody to just blindly trust someone they don't know. But what I want you to understand is that whether you like it or not, you are currently operating in some level of trust, whether you know it or not. So the key to a team being successful is first developing that trust foundation, where we say, look, I'm at a level 3 out of 10. That means I got some work to do to be able to develop myself and get to the place where people have at least an 8 confidence in me, that they trust in my ability to contribute to the team. Does that make sense? And so again, I want to challenge all of you guys to see it from that perspective of what percentage by department, by individual, do you trust those people? And by what percentage do I think they trust me? And you see, what ends up happening here is you start getting the perspective that trust takes time to build. And in the past, we've talked about trust, but today I want to lay out some of the key foundational pieces that I really believe are going to help us. So first and foremost, understand that trust is the foundation of every group situation and experience. And without it on a team, the team will not thrive over the long term. That is how important trust is. If we want to thrive, if we want to have a healthy environment, this has to be a priority for all of us. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you some foundational rules that I think are not only going to teach you, but are going to set the tone for our organization so that everybody knows when we say trust, what is the rule of engagement when we talk about trust. Everybody with me so far? So let's begin. So team rule number 1, and I want you guys to not only take a mental note, but take a note. Team rule number 1, always practice direct, open, and honest communication. You see, if you can't communicate with somebody, that in itself tells you you can't trust that person, right? And so a lot of times it comes to one or the other, and I'll explain. When there's a disconnect with trust, and somebody asks you a question about something missing in a project, for example, hey, something went wrong. Let me ask you a question, Javier, for example. There's usually a couple of ways that Javier's mind is going to process. He's either A, going to say, they don't trust me, they automatically assume I didn't do my job, and now he's going to get defensive, right? Why? Because in his mind, I'm not trusted, so you're always going to question me. You guys follow? Or B, they do have a level of trust and they say, actually, it's a really good point. In fact, let me show you my files. And what ends up happening is that becomes a good communication to find out what really took place, right? Which is somebody's got a healthy trust relationship, right? Or that person didn't own up to their portion of it, and now they have a choice. Hey, it wasn't my fault. It was Ani's fault. I couldn't get my job done because of Ani. Do you guys see the difference in the levels of trust? When you're communicating, if you don't have clear communication, that means there's a breakdown in your trust of individuals. And so what I want to challenge you guys, when we say direct, honest communication that's open with each other, is understand that when somebody asks you something, it doesn't mean that they're attacking you. It doesn't mean that they're questioning your authority or questioning your skills or questioning anything. What it means is that there needs to be a communication to get clarity on an issue. Does that make sense for everybody? So rule number one for our team that I want to really make sure and encourage is that whenever there's something going on, there's always, the whole team should be practicing direct, open, and honest communication with each other. Because the more we start talking to each other, the more we begin to understand that nobody was attacking you. Nobody was questioning your integrity. What do they want? They want clarity. And in a team, if you want to be successful, you have to have clarity and you have to have communication. So that's step one to building trust, is let's make sure that our communication is on point. Everybody with me so far? It's a safe environment. Team rule number two, no idea is a dumb idea. How many times have you seen people who hold back because they're afraid that their team member, because they don't trust, are going to make fun of their idea? And do you know how many companies have actually reported over the years that their core business was actually transformed and even eclipsed by one of their lower level employees who had an idea about a solution that was the problem they were dealing with? Later on, that became to be the actual product of the company that literally made millions and millions of dollars. So literally, guys, it doesn't matter what position you're in. It doesn't matter what department you're in. In the organization, if we want to build trust with each other, understand that we're in a safe zone where no idea is a dumb idea. Now, does it mean that we're going to take all of your ideas and now we have to execute on every single idea? Would you guys agree that's not realistic, right? But you know what we can do is we can actually take some of those ideas in our brainstorm sessions and actually put those ideas in a file and begin to put priority levels based on when we can execute those ideas, if they make sense. Is the timing right so that we can put that idea to work? And so again, it's imperative for us to make sure that we respect each other's ideas and say, that's a really good one. I don't know if this is the right time for it, but why don't we store it in our archive of ideas so that when the time comes, this is fresh on the list. You guys see the difference? Because if you can't express your ideas to the team, how could you ever feel trusted? How could you ever trust someone else? And so again, that's the reason why this is such an important component to building trust with your team. Number three, team rule number three, we're a team first, function specialist second. I'm going to say that again. Team rule number three, we're a team first, function specialist second. Now, I didn't create this rule. This rule actually came by a really, really successful organization that started out with just 2 employees. Now they have literally thousands of employees. And what they found in their teams when they were scaling is that they kept having a bunch of conflicts with their team members, and they would build up and get to scale, and then all of a sudden there would be an issue. They would defer back, they would have people quitting, and they would have all these problems. What they found is that they had put together in their teams these extremely direct people that were all about getting results. But what they didn't push was the team effort. So what ended up happening is you have these function specialists, these people that can execute, and the problem was they were butting heads instead of working together. So what the company did as they began to analyze these issues is they started saying, you know what, I think the issue here isn't breakdown just in communication. I think everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to go for it, but they're butting heads. So what they told everybody is we need to first, before anything else, we don't win unless if we all win. And so they changed the culture in the company to say, we are a team first, then we function with our specialized knowledge. And what they found is that by creating a priority first of teamwork, that the actual team would begin to sacrifice and give depending on the circumstances of the project that they were working, so that one could take a lead on one, the other could take a lead on the other. And before you know it, because they were working as a team, they started tackling the problems together, not trying to reach the finish line first. And that is what completely transformed their entire organization from having this growth explosion, arguments, quitting, reverting, starting over again. It's a cyclical process that they were going through. And they literally were able to put this rule in place as a part of their culture that I'm basically borrowing very humbly. And I would like for us to adapt. Because think about it. Many times we have conflict with each other. Why? We have conflict because we only see our perception. We only see our directive of where we're going. And a lot of times we don't put others first. So now Monique is just in my way. But the reality is, if I really take a look at the team effort, I need to make sure that Monique has what she needs in order for the team to win. Does that make sense? So that perception changes everything. And that's the kind of perception that we need in the team if we want to be successful. If you want to go to this next level, we have to make sure that we're a team first. Are we helping our team? That means that there might be some times that we need to stop what we're doing, even though we're very busy, and we need to go to that individual that's struggling, and we need to help them. We need to lift them up to the next level. That means that we have to be able to use that effective communication and say, listen, I'm noticing that you're falling behind. Long-term, this is going to impact my department. So why don't I step up right now as a part of the team and help you to get clarity so that you can move forward? Does that make sense? Because the other option is, oh, this person is so incompetent. I can never get my job done. I can never perform because these guys are idiots. They never do their job. But you know what happens without those idiots? You have no job. So look at it from that perspective. And I've seen teams in the past that are driven, result driven, which trust me, I'm one of those. So I have to be very careful. And what I find is that they ultimately fight their way into a little corner where they're by themselves. And that is the worst thing you can do, because you're in a corner by yourself. And what you end up doing is you end up forcing everybody else to evolve without needing you. So what do you think happens when that happens? When that happens, now you're obsolete. And it's a complete opposite of developing the team. Do you guys follow what I'm saying? So if you want to be successful, that's why this rule is so important. We have to think team first, then a functioning specialist second. Because again, you can do your job better when somebody is doing their job better. And if you see a place that you can step in and help them, choose team first before you jump into your functional role. Does that make sense for everybody? And again, that's really important. Another piece of this, and this is why I think this is so important for each and every one of us to really grasp, is there may be a time, because as a company we're growing, most of us are wearing multiple hats, right? So one day I'm doing this, the next day I got to wear this hat. Some of you might be doing roles that don't necessarily go with your skill set, right? And so why are you failing? Well, because that's not really your strength. And you try, but you're not doing it well. And so that's when it takes somebody who's in your team to say, let me step in here, and I recognize that the reason why this individual is struggling here is not because they don't want to do something. It's because they literally are not, that's not their skill set, right? So if I were to ask Sam, for example, I'm going to pick on him and say, I want you to break down a financial dissertation on the income and expense ratios that we're having these projects, Sam is going to go, whoa. Now he may, well, we've got the communication now, right? But he may be like sitting in the computer going, okay, well, I have to now step up. But if you think about it, he might give me a spreadsheet that has absolutely no data that I need to make my decision, right? Why? Because that's not his strength. But if I said, hey, Sam, now that I know your strength, why don't you bring me these individuals that we need? Do you see what I'm saying? We start leveraging each other's strengths. And so as a team member, if you see that, understand that that is impacting your department directly or indirectly. So as a team member, you should be able to sit down and either help bring a solution. Maybe it's a coaching situation. Hey, it's as simple as this. Try this first and you're fine. Or maybe to come back and say, honestly, with my clear communication and honesty, I just don't know if this is a fit for your style. Maybe you can help us here and somebody else on the team can help you with that portion of it. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to cultivate here, guys, is team first, then your function specialist is the second role in what we do. Lastly, and I think this is probably the most important in building trust, guys, is this. Team rule number 4. You earn trust from your team by being trustworthy first. Understand that building trust is all about how many deposits you're making. You cannot expect somebody to trust you if first you haven't proven to them that you're worthy of being trustworthy. Does that make sense? And so it's imperative, and what I want to challenge all of us to do is that instead of talking about trust, be the trustworthy person that you want somebody to trust you with. Because what happens, it's contagious. If Steve starts giving me trust and he starts trying to do his best to perform for me, by default, human nature, I now want to reciprocate that with Steve. And now all of a sudden, our bond level starts going up. And that's where that bar of trust starts growing and growing and growing. Same thing with, for example, Monique. If Monique and I are working on something and I trust her, right, it's because she's earned that trust, right? In the same way, I have to do the same with her. She needs to be able to trust me. She needs to be able to see that I'm committed to her. And that never stops, guys. That is something that we constantly need to invest in each other. We need to make sure that we're intentional about, number 1, always practice direct, open, and honest communication. 2, understand that no idea is done. 3, well, we're a team first, and if we're a functional specialist second. And lastly, If you really want people to trust you, be the person that can be trusted. It's as simple as doing what you say you're going to do, communicate effectively, call out situations, and by doing that, you develop trust. I'm going to do a shout out real quick as we wrap this up with Christine. Christine's working in our post-closing department. She's had a great attitude. There's so many things we've thrown at her that she had no idea, right? I mean, there's times where she's like, I have no clue what's going on, right? But guess what? She learned, she started taking notes, she started doing it. It wasn't until, a week or two ago that she said, hey guys, I just want to be honest with you. Just so that you guys see the picture here, I'm tapped out. I'm to a point now where I am overwhelmed with the amount of work that I have that I can't be productive anymore. You know how much courage it takes for somebody to be able to be transparent, vulnerable, and to say, look, here's where I'm at. This is my capacity. These are my strengths, but I'm beyond it. What that allowed us to do is to immediately start working on a solution to bring support for her. Now, how many people over the years have been overworked and had no idea what was going on, but they never called it? So all this time they feel like they just keep throwing more at me. They keep doing this. You guys follow? That open communication helped us to create a new system so that we can focus on her strengths and bring somebody else that literally is able to work on the areas that she's not as strong. And again, that's where a team comes in. So again, I want to challenge you guys. These are the ground rules for building trust. Next week, we're going to pull the results from this particular test, and we're going to laugh about them, I'm sure, and talk a little bit about them. But I want to encourage us in this series, don't just listen to another training that we have. Let this go from your mind to your heart, because I'm telling you, this will help you in life. It'll help you in your marriage. It'll help you in your relationships, and it'll help you in business. Let's make sure that we build a powerful team that is unstoppable. And I'll leave it with this quote from Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Let's let that be the definition of our success as a team. That as we work together and we're productive, that equals success. It is not about I'm the best in the team. That doesn't matter in a team. What matters in the team is that together we're working successfully and we're executing and being successful. So with that said, guys, I'll open up for any questions. Thank you so much. And after that, we will move on for the rest of the day. So
I'll just add something real quick.
Yes.
In fact, we do talk about trust quite a bit on our sales meetings and even with individual salespeople. But part of the reason why even Mondays we start with our core values and talking about that is because we need to align our interests individually and our interests as a company. And if these interests are aligned with our core values, then basically we will thrive towards the same thing and we can trust each other, right? So in other words, if I can trust that Darla is her interests are to do the right thing, and I can trust that Damien, his interest is to do the right thing, and so on and so forth, and it's not for self-interest or financial interest, or it's all about doing the right thing for our clients and as a company, right? Then we can trust each other. But that is why we really emphasize on our core values and what we believe in, because as long as we all follow what together as a company we believe in, then we could trust each other that we will seek the best interest for the company and for the individual, and we'll do the right thing. So it really just comes down to that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Any other comments, questions?
I think one of the things you said, Rick, about rule number 1, about always practice direct, open, and honest communication. Read a lot over the years, and great companies, any company rises and falls on communication.
I agree with that 100%.
It's pretty basic with that. You have to have clear communication. And then about respect, even with, you can't earn trust from your team by being trustworthy first. That's how you earn it. That's the same with training an animal, training a dog. If the dog doesn't trust you, you'll never get anywhere. You have to earn that trust by being a loyal master to that dog. Mm-hmm. But if you're not, he will never trust you.
That's a really good point. And if that works with animals, how much more with human beings? That actually
exactly.
A completely different level of thinking.
Yeah, and Darla, to kind of touch on your point, I'm candid by nature. And oftentimes when you're candid with someone, that can come off as being harsh or arrogant or rude. And sometimes we have to get over that when that's not the intent. And we run into that a lot emotionally with a lot of the people that have come in and out of the office, like, well, and then you have to explain yourself or apologize for something that really there's no need for, right? We just have to take each other for, hey, he's not here to hurt me. This is just how we communicate with each other. And that's what a team has to do, is learn how each one of those individuals communicates with the language. I'm always touching stuff. So that's definitely part of it. And then to Luis's point, talking about being in alignment, we've got a scenario with a deal that Ani brought in, and it's a triple wholesale deal, right? And the wholesaler calls me up today and he goes, well, they did the last deal with Lending Home, and I told these people to work with you this time. I was like, well, you understand if you did that, then you know that this is not alignment when you have a wholesaler that's charging $25,000 assignment fee on top of a deal that was $45,000. That's not alignment with who we are and how we do business. So it's that type of mentality. And oftentimes I'm willing to walk away from a deal because it's not alignment with us or how we do things or the right thing. And you have to be willing to walk away. So, but that's part of that deal today, Luis, which we will talk to them at 4 o'clock. And that's what I explained to the guys, like, there's nothing, I appreciate you referring people to us, but you also have to understand how we conduct business and what's right and what's not. So that's.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else, comments?
I'd like to chime in if you don't mind. Hi
Yeah,
guys,
sure.
I'm Tracy. I'm new here, but I love being part of the group and being able to participate. One experience that I've noted in almost any organization I've worked in is that there is an us versus them mentality internally a lot of times between admin people, personnel, and salespeople or revenue generators. Admin tends to be treated as a cost rather than a help. And salespeople sometimes are treated a bit like prima donnas. And I've been both, so I can speak to both, and I've managed both. But I really love what you said, Rick, about we're a team first, because if you keep that viewpoint in mind and remember you're all working towards a common goal, treat your counterparts more as a friend than a foe, and you're going to get a lot further than treating them like a roadblock. And I see that happen time and time and time again in organizations. You know, an admin person asks you for what they need to get their job done. They don't ask because they're trying to stop you. And salespeople push because they are under pressure to deliver results. And so they're not necessarily trying to be difficult, but they haven't walked in an admin's shoes a lot of times to understand what is expected. So I think the give and take and going back to, again, that team first mentality, it's not about your function, it's how you work together with other functions of the organization.
Beautifully put, Tracy. That's exactly what it is. And we've been in that tug of war in the past, and we still are sometimes on Philo. So you're dead on. And that's really what we're trying to get out of, right? Is to get to the point where we all benefit by helping each other. But at the same time, we all respect each other, because there could also be a level of abuse on that side where somebody says, well, now that I know that Dayton can do this, I'm just going to throw it at him every time and act dumb. And so again, there's that level again of trustworthiness, of respect that we have for each other that helps us to be able to collaborate, work together, and somebody picks up the slack where I'm weak and so forth. But again, we do it in a way that honors your team member, because otherwise you're going to lose that respect and that trust quickly. So great point, Tracy. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. One more. We got room for one more, and then we'll wrap it up for the week.
I would just like to say that I've been around for a while with the company now, and some of us on the team are newer, but I guess the one thing that would make me quit this company or any company is the lack of trust. And I can honestly say that I've seen mistakes happen. You know, that we're all human. I can handle mistakes, but I've never caught a lie. I've never caught Rick or any of our management, talking out of two sides. So I think for this training and for this goal, we have a solid base. I can tell you that from personal experience. And I always kind of have the attitude when I get into a business, the only way I can quit is if there's lying, cheating, or stealing. And if there is, then I have a reason to quit. But we just have such a solid trust base from the top all the way down. So we definitely, what a great message today, and we definitely have something to build on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate the words of confidence. Absolutely. So with that said, guys, again, please, you got the email, take your test. I would love to get your input so we can get better. That's the whole point, right? We're trying to improve and get better. We can't get better without knowing, and your input matters. If it didn't matter, I'd just be creating my own thing. So again, we want to get your input so that we can develop a team effort here. So again, thank you guys. Have an amazing week. And remember that, again, first and foremost, team first, the function specialist is second. So awesome, guys. Have a great week.